Hello and welcome. Good evening. Welcome you all joining us here at Rui Cunha Foundation and those joining us via Facebook Live. It's my great pleasure to be back home because the Rui Cunha Foundation has become, to many of us, a second home. We have been fortunate for having the opportunity of enjoying all these talks, roundtables, and today we do have a very special lecture. As you can see on Macao's East-West tourism economy, culture, gastronomy, and identity imaginaries. We are honored for having with us Professor Marisa Gaspar. This is a talk, a lecture, part of the public lecture series History and Heritage Studies, jointly organized by the Research Laboratory for Cultural Sustainability and the Department of Communications and Media of the University of St. Joseph. I would like to greet Professor Dennis Webb for, he's the one behind the mastermind, I would say, behind this series of lectures that we've been holding here jointly with Rui Cunha Foundation. Warm greetings also to the Foundation's team here, always giving us precious support. So today we'll be talking about, we can clearly say literally there will be plenty of food for thought by the end of this session, but we are just at the onset, so we'll have like the appetizer and then the main course and the dessert at the end. You will be enlightening us. Let me first introduce Professor Marisa Gaspar. She's an invited assistant professor in the Department of Social Sciences at ISEG, Lisbon School of Economics and Management, Universidade de Lisboa, Portugal. She's also a researcher at Socios CSG, Research in Social Sciences and Management. Marisa graduated in anthropology from Lisbon University Institute ISCTE, IUL, Portugal. In 2009, she received her master in social anthropology at the London School of Economics, and 1 year later she was landing in Macao for the very first time, arriving in Macao, the first of many visits of a decade-long relation and link. Her research focuses on Macao, the city's socio-economic and cultural transformation in early post-colonial period, on the study of Portuguese colonialism, the Macanese community, transnationalism, and diaspora's ethnic identities and creolization processes. From 2017, she joins Socios CSG as a postdoctoral fellow and the Institute of European Studies of Macao as a visiting researcher with the research project Feasting and Power, the Economy and Culture in Macao. This is the main topic, takes center stage here in 2018. That was the last time we had the opportunity of having Professor Marisa Gaspar here, and 5 years on, actually, coincidentally or not, 2018, that was when Macao became part of the UNESCO Creative Cities Network in the field of gastronomy. So over these 5 years, Marisa has been keeping a close eye on our city. And now that borders have fully reopened, we have her with us. Without further ado, please a big hand to our guest speaker. Marisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for your kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be back in Macao for these 5 years of absence. First of all, I want to thank Dennis for the invitation to give this talk, and the Institute of European Studies for hosting me another season for my fieldwork research, and of course of Fundação do Oriente for hosting me, giving me home for these months that I've been here already. So many thanks to all. It would not be possible without your help to come back. So, as you said, last time, 2018, it was the kickoff of the City of Gastronomy. It was not a coincidence because my project is precisely about that. But now with these 5 years of absence, I'm back, and actually I can see a lot of differences that it would expect it to happen. And I will talk about it as well. So let me stand, please, because I have a lot of photos here, so it's more dynamic if I go around. So, for me as an anthropologist, I was always fascinating with this land because it's really, during the decolonization process that was in course in Macau some decades ago, actually I think it began much before the 1999 handover. I think it became right 10 years before that, when the two authorities, Portuguese and Chinese authorities, were kind of negotiating a handover and actually a kind of identity for this place. So, as I was saying, as an anthropologist, it is fascinating for me how a decolonization process turns out to be like this. Instead of being erased all the marks of a Portuguese presence here, it was the opposite that happened, right? So we actually assisted to an economic boom that was being also prepared to happen in 2002 with the opening of the gambling monopoly that nowadays we have this configuration. It was actually something, I think, in my opinion, the biggest transformation of Macau was not related to the handover political process, but actually all these economic transformations in terms of foreign investment that happened here, and it really transformed the city in this vision that we have here. So the gambling capital of the world. Actually, any way we go, or I go, or everybody goes and talks about Macau, when somebody knows about Macau, it's always related with gambling. So no doubts that it makes its point. It is actually the gambling capital of the world. And the recipes turns out to be in, what, two years' time, 6 times bigger than Las Vegas. So it was really something. But at the same time, we actually saw this process of what I call the UNESCO gaining of titles. So the government was really concerned since the beginning, not only in losing the face, because Macau is not only a gambling city, but something that it is unique in its heritage. And with this UNESCO title, which classified the Macau Center, all these buildings, the historic buildings, colonial buildings, actually the Portuguese pavement that was done at that time, and the churches and everything at this set of architecture, it was actually important not only to mark a point of a city of culture that has been announced since then, but also as a place to visit, not only for gambling, but because it has a heritage and a singular identity that could not be found in anywhere else in the world. So we have these two plates of the thing, right? A gambling city and a heritage city. And throughout the years, I've been listening these slogans related to tourism, right? There is no doubt that tourism is the major responsible for the economy of the city. It was the most profit sector. Macau is in I think it was one of the cities that had much more profit from the tourism sector. So imagine, this is the GPD, it depends entirely on the tourism sector. But we have been listening these big slogans of World Center for Tourism and Leisure. 2018 was this, I was hearing all the time, but this time we also listening Tourism Plus 1+4 development strategy. So what is changing, or actually is anything is changing, or is just the slogans that the tourism is, the government is using like a strategy to make people to see beyond that is something is going on, that the GDP is not, it must not come so dependent from the gambling industry, because culture is much stronger, because there are a lot of investment in these big events, and of course in food identity. So my project, as José Carlos was saying, is about this, which in Portuguese I call it poder e comer, feasting and power. So what is going on? What was going on in 2018? It was the kickoff of another title of UNESCO. So I think that was the real achievement of Alexis Stam. You know, he won a title of UNESCO. Now Macao is in UNESCO, a creative city network of creative cities in gastronomy. And it was like, okay, we have another title, we have another thing to attract people to come here for food. But yes, I mean, these public policies that have been implemented year after year, focused on different aspects. Now it's not city of culture, it's city of gastronomy. But anyways, this recognition, of international recognition, is important for the Macao authorities to keep going, showing that Macao has much more to offer besides gambling and all the negative things associated to gambling. But at this part, they were very concerned about the kickoff of this awareness of the city of gastronomy. So I wanted to dig in to understand how the people were involved in this. So, of course, this was a year of many events, and actually, oh, sorry. How can I return to the previous slide here? This one, okay. So, but we can see that what is exactly City of Gastronomy? Because, in the website, it was the first thing done right after the title was after the membership was given, and you can see that is, very different kinds of foods. You can see the minchi, but you can see also the Portuguese pastéis de bacalhau, comida de Macao. What is this exactly? Other thing that I really think that is incredible to see is how they put pastel de nata and right with the Portuguese Barcelos coque. Everything is very mixed, and what they mean by city of gastronomy is a Creole food. What is this? So when I was digging in, and I was asking why this was so important for UNESCO to recognize Macao as a city of gastronomy. What is the singularity? What Macao has to offer in terms of gastronomy that is not just like any other cosmopolitan city that has a lot of food to offer? And this, the Alexis Stam always said, no, gastronomy has been our distinctive element because of more than 400 years we have this encounter of cultures, and the food actually represents that encounter of culture. So I realized, oh, you are talking about Macanese food. And all that comes to, the official sources of information, like they build up this database with them. It is an important work actually to collect, to make an inventory of the Macanese recipes, and the Macanese diaspora was very collaborative, and they were people throughout the diaspora sending the recipe books and so on. So, okay, so this is because of Macanese gastronomy that the title was reached. So, but what is the Macanese gastronomy? Actually, it's hard to find someone in the government institutions that can actually explain and talk about it. And the Macanese gastronomy actually it was always kept in private, in secret. It is the most distinctive element of identity for the Macanese because, as they always told me, we are like this food. We tell the same. We tell the same story. You can look at the plate. You see all the mixture of flavors, of ways of cook. It all is expressed in these dishes, and we are like this. We have influence, like the travel of the caravans until coming here. We have all this influence. We have all these mixtures, and this makes us. These are our identity. And back in the 90s, before the handover, actually it was a concern of losing this heritage, losing this cultural manifestation of the community, because people, as I was saying, kept their recipes as treasures, and they not wanted to give it, to publish the books, because my family knows a recipe for minchi that is different from yours. And me having this particular recipe makes me more Macanese than you, because mine is more original than yours. So this is really an important marker for identity within the community. So that's why families were keeping their recipes, and it was always a kind of cuisine that was within the household. It was a domestic concern. It was never commercialized. It never had so many restaurants. Even, you have 1 or 2 restaurants in Macau, even in the old days. So this was really something from the universe of the household, something to keep in the family. But as I was saying, with the creation, even before that, during the 90s, there were this campaign of, trying to convince people that was important to, hey, you need to publish your recipes, because when you disappear, your recipes will disappear with you. So it's important for the next generations that you have this recorded. So we can see only during that time a more a volume of books being published. The most known ones was the Graça Pacheco Jorge, that even not today because she's getting old, is giving workshops at the Casa de Macau in Lisbon, or now the new generations like Carlos Cabral is publishing, is in front of the Macanese gastronomy as well. So now actually you can see there are more this effort to publish more, and even if they want to do it, it's hard, because the old recipes used to come with ingredients and in measures that do not exist anymore. So it's hard for them to reproduce the old dishes. It's not just a matter of, I don't care, no, it's really difficult to keep going, cooking the same way, and they need to innovate as well. But with the creation of the Macanese gastronomy in the early years of 2000, this really makes a change, a difference, because it was like something like, okay, now we have an association, we have been represented, and much more activities were being done in that respect. Actually, that is interesting and important. The Macanese Gastronomy Association is one of the partnerships of the associations of gastronomy in Europe. So the Macanese gastronomy is considered part of one of the gastronomies of Europe because of its Portuguese ancestral basis, which is very clear. Well, what is the Macanese gastronomy? Here you have a picture of a chá gordo, delicious one, which is the most emblematic meal of the Macanese. The chá gordo is to be literally fatty. It was to be a very table like that, full of different dishes that used to be served at 5 o'clock. And most of these dishes, as I was saying, are difficult to maintain because of the difficulty of to keep finding the ingredients and the ways to cook it, and even the information to do so. But all these kind of things, the publication of recipe books, you know, the documentaries, even this that I don't know if you remember, but this was with Sabroso, was
yes.
a TDM
TDM
program.
And Isabel Diaz.
Yes.
Yes.
Even in the Chinese channel, I think.
Yes.
So it was important also to keep going with this idea that is important to show what is this food, how to cook this food. And I think this kind of initiatives give some projection at the community. Not so much the title of UNESCO, actually. But anyways, what is amazing is that this particular gastronomy, of course, all this I'm not talking here about the theater in Patois, but in Macau and in China, they both came together. But now I'm focused on food. So for me, what happened in 2021 was incredible. China recognized the Macanese food as a national heritage. We are talking about a heritage that has a Portuguese base. It's clear. The dishes have a clear influence of Portuguese recipes. Can even say that in the beginning it was a way to replicate the Portuguese dishes with the local ingredients and the local spices, with what was available, right? But there, in the sweet dishes, it's clear the influence of the Portuguese tradition of sweets. And there is a dish that is very clear, all the Portuguese influence, a tacho. It's a cozido with all the ingredients that could be more similar to the ones that are used in the Portuguese dish. So there is no doubt that this particular cuisine has a very strong influence of the Portuguese identity, food identity, and of course, as well, and again, the Macanists did it in their own way in this particular context with the rest of that things that influences them, as the rest of their identity and culture. So in 2002 was me doing my PhD, and they were applying for the intangible cultural heritage of Macau, which came in 2012. In 2017, by the end of the year, we have the classification of Macau as a city of gastronomy. Being the Macanese gastronomy the main factor for achieving this title, no doubts about it. And in 2021, we have China recognizing this cultural manifestation, Western, with a strong part of Western, classified as a national heritage. So for the Macanese, this has been a recognition, clearly is a China manifesting a recognition that is important to keep going this difference, this identity, singularity in Macau. And for the community in particular, they see this as a way to promote their identity and to celebrate it and to create more awareness of the existence of this particular cuisine. Well, talking about the year of gastronomy, which was like everything that was related with all the festivals, all the promotions, all the tourism has to do with the gastronomy element. So, and this was not only in Macau, actually. This, of course, Marcel eating if you want to show to
The
the president
Portugal.
of Portugal something that is very representative of the gastronomy in Macau, you what to do? You give him a pastel de Belém or pastel de nata.
Yes.
Well, this is I don't know. This is Portuguese
yes,
mechanism. What? Now they say, this is No, this is not Portuguese anymore. This is the pastel de nata de Macau. This is a egg tart from Macau. It's already ours. Like the cock, as we saw in the souvenir shop. So, but as I was saying, this year was particularly promoted everywhere. I mean, in Portugal, Macau was the main tourism destination that was highlighted in the BTL, in the tourism fair in Lisbon. They put there a food truck. Somebody was cooking minchi all the time. You can taste minchi all the time. Here is one of the main railways in Lisbon, the Sintra Railway. So gastronomy of excellence. And what is Macau? Where is Macau? Gastronomy of excellence. Yes, and this was the big promotion this year of gastronomy. And this is definitely a style to promote Macau. I'm not doubts about it. In a big scale, in a big events, everything is big. So as I was saying, again, these quotations that I'm doing here in the slides are always from the interviews that I did, and again the concern about economy, diversity needs to come with the non-gambling activities. We cannot be so dependent on gambling revenue. Hosts need to come here and to stay longer. So this is a concern for many, many years in Macau. It feels like this is an achievement that the government wants, but at the same time, it never gets it because never the non-activities are more profit than the gambling ones. So, but always with this, this is another slogan like this: the platform between China and the Portuguese-speaking countries. So you always see this kind of events, those of near the Cultural Week, China and the Portuguese-speaking countries, and last year, no, it was this year already. After all these years of pandemic that Macau was closed up, Oyat-sen decided to come for the first foreign destination to Lisbon. And they went there with this big committee of businessmen and government institutions. And this was the projection of Macau in the Terreiro do Paço. So it was there for almost a week. And of course, Portugal, recognizing the importance of being, of getting strong alliances with Macau and China in order to have more Chinese tourists. Portugal is a country of tourism as well. Our economy depends on it. And actually, Portugal was, when we saw Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa over there, it was the year after Xi Jinping visit to Portugal, and when Portugal associated itself with the Belt and Road initiative. Right in the year before, in 2019, Portugal was one of the countries that increased more in terms of Chinese tourists in Europe. So this is very representative what this means. And for the first time as well, I saw this kind of, the gambling concessions there being represented at the same time as the Cultural Bureau and all the tourism promotion. So I realized that something was going on after these 3 years of pandemic. And when I get here, I realized that something was really changing because we had, for the first time, the concessions working together with the government in order to revitalize the neighbors, to be more interventive in terms of funding and so on in cultural activities. So yeah, this is the goals of the government, right? To the non-gambling activities to be bigger, to exceed, to expect it to make up 60% of Macau GDP. My God, by 2028, I don't know how, but these are their goals. And this kind of tourism that is now, and this was a condition, right? 10 years of the concessions renovation to intervene, to be more active in this cultural city activities and promotion. I don't know, this seems to me that is an imaginary identity for the future of Macau without gambling. I don't know if it's possible even to imagine Macau without gambling. So I would like to finish this talk with some thoughts that I think tourism is important as a soft power instrument that must be a window to see much beyond what is going on, not only in Macau, but much further. So for me, it's, I think this is not only about economy or economy diversification. It has also to do with the construction, with the ideology of a construction of a certain identity for this land. It's important people to feel bonded with this land and to feel that they are part of this. So this is important to create a sense of identity that bond people together, and together also to a government, a local one and a central one in terms of ideology, national ideology. But internally, Macau has been really it's been playing a role important for the history of China, yes, as we have been hearing all over again, that needs to be this platform. There are very different voices about the operationality of the Forum Macau for 20 years now. We can hear that, yes, it's very important to exist. I don't know what they are doing anyway. Of course, Brazil and Angola do not need the Forum Macau to do business with China. I mean, that is very obvious. But I don't know if for the smaller countries, if not, is important. Yes, it's a mechanism that probably will facilitate more in terms of training. I mean, focused on tourism, I know that there are many training programs of exchange programs that are happening. And these smaller countries in Africa and so on, they do feel that this is important for them to have this closer link with Macau and with China. Well, for Portugal, it seems to me that the Belt and Road Initiative is very strategic, not only for China, but also for Portugal. But this location of Portugal in the Atlantic not only opens a gateway to the rest of the Latin America and so on, but also having this partnership in Europe is important for the rest of the European community. It's a door that opens. So yes, I believe that this is still a door for China to get closer to Portugal, for instance. And as I was saying, this actually, the Chinese investment in Portugal is super big and in very important companies, strategic ones. But also in terms of tourism, as I was saying, it really makes the difference. And even if they keep going with the plans of, for me that is a difficulty, not only in the Greater Bay Area, but in the whole project of the BRI, is the problem of connectivity, of exchange of people. So if people can move freely, not only in the Greater Bay Area, but in all the BRI membership countries, will be a boom in terms of tourism. Imagine if all the tourists can move freely through all this big belt. It will be incredible. It will be a boom of tourists everywhere. So, and I think Portugal has been looking at that in a very close way. In terms of Greater Bay Area, of course, this Macao is always a singular place here in the rest of the cities. It will be this place of tourism because it has something that the others doesn't have, which is tourism. And I think if the idea of working collaboratively, like Macao has no land to build more buildings, but the others can have hotels, and here only the gambling infrastructures. Maybe it will work if they open up the way that people can apply to visas and to move within the rest of the cities. And by the end of the day, what is important are the mechanisms, what they stand in all this context of big changes and uncertainty as well, because we never know what is going to happen after the 10 years of the concessions contract. We are getting closer to the end of the period of the transition period. What is going to happen to Macau after 2049? Well, we are always guessing this time in 10 years. But I don't know, from a perspective of someone that was far and was listening the testimonies of people that were here during the pandemics, it sounds to me that was more or less what happened before the handover. People were feeling afraid of keep going in Macau. What conditions they can keep going living here in a place that is accelerating its full integration to China. What is going to happen to this land is going to be all these policies for non-gambling activities will make Macau in the end a city without gambling and without this specificity. Is the culture strong enough to keep going, justifying a Portuguese community here, and so on and so on. So I don't know, I was not here during the pandemics. I felt that in my skin because I was planning to come and could not come. I felt like a very foreign person at the same time that I already feel Macau as my home as well. So it was very, this ambiguity feelings. And I was not here, so I imagine people were living here for many years, and the sons and daughters of the soil, like the Macanese, were feeling this uncertainty. It seems to me that was another handover going on here. And we can come the discussion of this talk through here or not. I left to the audience. But yeah, I mean, definitely this is a place that is in constant transformation and mutation. And for me as a researcher, it what gives me food for thought as well, to keep going researching this place, because I keep going feeling that this is very interesting and a very unique model of politics, of economics, and of course, identity and culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, very much, Marisa. It was really comprehensive and heartfelt, and we can sense how special it is for you to be back here and to share this with us. So thank you very much. So many interesting things that you pointed out. I would use the prerogative of being the moderator to during the first question. I like this idea of tourism as soft power. I think this is pretty much still a bit of an untapped field of research on the soft power tools that Macau has and resources. So my question has to do with the resources. You point out the distinctive features of Macau as an asset in the context of regional integration, the Greater Bay Area, and the road to 2049 and beyond. Tell me, how do you regard, in terms of the resources that we have at our disposal, how we maximizing it to project this idea of the Macau SAR as a soft power tool that is two ways, of course, for obviously China, but also the other way around for projecting Lusophone culture here in the city. How do you see? Is it underutilized, or what can be done to maximize it?
Oh, well, that is a tough question. Well, of course, for me as Portuguese and an expert on the Macanese identity, when I see things like this, oh, sorry. Is a Creole identity of food. What is this? I mean, what is this mixture? They say aldoa is a typical Macanese dessert and Portuguese food. And you put together the sardines and the minchi, and then you put together the cock and the cat, and this is very confusing. And my God, what they are doing, they are completely mistaking all the thing. But at the same time, I think I don't know if it's what the tourists want to see, which is different from Chinese culture, or if it's just the way to, as you were saying, to maximize everything that is foreign. So put all together, and this has this final product, and it's all right.
It's like our tacho, right? It's like
our tacho. I don't know.
Cozido, right?
It will be this the identity of Macau that we are seeing, that we are, you know, year after year, decade after decade, that we are trying to have in the city with this, or this is just spontaneously happening by the shopkeepers or by the restaurant owners, that in order to offer something different, they just come up with this crazy madness mixture of things that it seems to us that are so different. Of course, from the perspective of a Macanese person, when they see, no, how can you put alwa with the rest of the thing? No, my God, this is not our culture. This is not what our food is. But can be what it is Macau. It was always like a very mixture of things, that incomprehensible things. I lost in translation most of the time. So when you talk about Lusophony, okay, we see that in Portuguese language is important. There are more than 69 universities in China teaching Portuguese. Macau could be done much more about it, of course. But for me, it's no doubt that this is important, to be different somehow. Even though these are a very confusing image and ideas and whatever, this is important for business, this is important for the Chinese pragmatism, and this is important to keep going, having tourists that are, you know, hunger to eat this, to feel this, because it's completely different from China. And even though this could be kind of crazy Disneyland and so on, I think this actually is what Macau will have in the future, this mixture of this I can call multiculturalism, because until now I didn't, when I was doing my PhD, in 2010, when I came here, for me it was clear that there were two communities living here for many centuries, that did not mix at all. The Macanese was the exception, and they were a minor ethnic community. But now, I mean, now I see everything mixed. I don't know what is going to end, but maybe this search for multiculturalism, a fusion of different things that nobody are so much concerned in define it, but just exist spontaneously, I think could be like the future for Macau. I don't know.
Thank you, Marisa. Well, I guess many of you would like to, or some of you would like to join the conversation, and with some remarks and questions. Professor Dennis Webb, please go ahead.
Marisa, thank you so much for your talk. I have a question, and it's related with the food, of course. You mentioned this very interesting point about family recipes as cultural capital of each Macanese family, sort of going commercial. So it's about intimacy, going commercial. How do Macanese feel about this? Do they feel empowered, or do they feel that they're losing control? So sort of disempowered? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is exactly the point, is the intimacy going commercialized, going to the public sphere. And I think that for most of the Macanese, that it, in terms of, it could be an asset in the sense that, okay, if I have a restaurant, I can maximize this dish or this recipe because, you know, I know that people are coming here to eat this particular dish, but all the Macanese owners of restaurants, they always told me this is not profitable to have only Macanese dishes in my restaurant. I always need to put Portuguese dishes as well. Because this is a domestic food that was thought and done at home, it took many time to be prepared with love, with time. So this is not, that's why it was never get out of that domestic universe and was commercialized before. Well, we had rickshaw and some restaurants, but never exclusively Macanese restaurants. So it was this, they were telling me all the time, this is not profitable to have only Macanese food in here. But yeah, at the same time, the big discussion around this is also had to do with the fact that what they are doing with our recipes. This is not how it does. It's like a violation, right? They are telling
Desecration
me,
of
the minchi comes with the fried egg. No way! Come on.
Actually, you can have a very, like we could have a round table on minchi on the different, with different schools of thought, right?
It's supposed to be so many different recipes for minchi, as many families, as many Macanese families. So that is a very interesting fact that this is why the difference of an ingredient or something to make the difference and the distinguish between one and the other family. This was always a thing that they done for decades, for centuries. My minchi is different from your minchi or other dishes. So yes, and now seeing minchi everywhere, it's really. And of course, for them as an heritage community, they are discussing the authenticity of that, right? What is authentic, what is not authentic, but I mean, that's why I keep going saying that at least this makes public discussion and makes people talking about the Macanese community, which is important to be remembered. They are the daughters and sons of this soil, and they need to be this. They need to have this recognition, even though it's symbolic recognition, but they need to have it to keep going with their identity and culture. I think it's important, yes.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Diogo Calado. Thank you for your talk, Professor Marisa Gaspar. It was a very nice talk, a very interesting subject. My question is maybe a little bit a challenge because I get the idea that you talk about the Macanese culture as very diverse fusion of many different origins or many different aspects. So my question is that isn't that probably part of the Portuguese heritage? I remember that Portugal Portugal history comes from the Visigoths, the Moorish, the Romans. Yes, of course, exactly. So isn't this part of our own cultural heritage? This lack of definition of what it is to be Portuguese, how it is difficult to characterize. I lived 10.5 years in mainland China, and the only thing that the Chinese knew about Portugal was Cristiano Ronaldo. I worked with the Portuguese Tourism Board, and even the tourism promoters, they didn't know how to characterize Portugal to the Chinese. They knew the different cultural aspects, but how to characterize it was very hard for them. So my question is, isn't this a part of our own identity?
Yeah, sure. I mean, studying identity for many years, I'm pretty sure that identity is something that is undefinable. It really is hard to define someone as in this or that, because most of the times we feel part of different things in different contexts. When you live here or abroad or in your origin, in your country of you were born, for sure you feel different things. But what the states, what the governments, what these nationalist movements made from decades and decades ago, it was this creating like a formula that the rest of the people need to accept as theirs, like Portuguese and bacalhau. So you need to identify with bacalhau. It doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it. So these are, these are almost political nationalisms that are being constructed in the base of an idea, and that the people follow that idea. But of course, identity is complete fluid and is complete, is not static, and what you feel now is different from what you feel in the future or in the past, and the example of the Macanese community for me was a case study that, because it is so dispersed from all over the globe, the diaspora is so big and there are not so many here. It was a very interesting case study, because this way I could really understand how fluid it is. And even though people don't know each other, this imagined community of Benedict Anderson is really this model. Even though people don't know each other, even the newer generations don't know Macau, the fact is that all them feel a really bond to this land and a really connection. If it's because of food, yes. If it's because of a certain way of feeling, a certain way of talking, of course. But different people have different relations with this bond. But what is important here is this idea of being connected, of being linked with the territory, and that is very, very strong in them. Probably for us as Portuguese, you feel the same, this connection, this bond with the territory. Yeah, more than the codfish.
Because the Portuguese feel the same about their own. We have about 5 million Portuguese around the world. And every time they get together in a foreign country, it's like they seem very good old friends. And so it's
not so much in the country.
not in the country. Yes, outside the country. Exactly. So.
Yes. Well.
Oh,
Okay, please, Christopher, yeah, please.
Just a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. It's very learned. In your research, though, as you look at the Portuguese culinary footprint in Asia or outside of Portugal, have you compared it to other former Portuguese territories and how the culinary influence had impacted kind of the local scene and how those local governments have been able to commercialize it? For example, maybe in Goa or in Malacca. Have there been any kind of similarities that maybe Macau can just simply copy, or are there any areas that Macau could just maybe build on based upon the success or failures someplace else? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, the most similar cases that you could compare it is Goa, of course. The Goa food is completely different from the Indian food as well, and the Malacca Portuguese settlement that I'll have the opportunity to visit the settlement this coming November, but people are telling me that it's like a life museum there. People, the Christians are circumscribed to a place, and they are like a life museum of person. Well, I cannot predict what is going to happen here in Macau or with the Macanese. I hope not the same, because I think they are much more important in power positions than in a life museum, just to show how different they are. But I never did that study to compare different culinaries, but I think, yes, we can, well, the Macanese is almost the end of line, right? So it received influences from the Indian Goan cuisine, and the Malacca, of course, they are very clear. The Malaccan one, for instance, as well as with the Patois, the Creole language. The last influence was really that, and is the most clear influence. It's history, like this map that I showed here with the caravans, right? This really tells the story. Macau was the last port of the Portuguese in the Far East, so all the influences are there some way, or an ingredient, or a way to cook, and saying that, of course, is a Portuguese-based cuisine, okay, but Indo-Portuguese-based cuisine, I would say that is more correct.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Because I just want to present a little bit the Macanese food. Last month, 28th, I just joined in the International Congress in Aveiro University about the intercultural between China and Portugal. And then my presentation topic is about speaking the same language, Cantonese, about the Greater Bay Area spirit. And then we mentioned the nice city in Canton and Hong Kong and Macau, all the basic language, the common language is Cantonese. And then not many people realize that in this area, when you want to, foreigners especially, the marketing in China, I think for Greater Bay Area, I think the more important is about the Cantonese spirit. And then I realized for the Macanese food, the one important element is about the Cantonese style as well. Not only Portuguese, Indian or Malaysian, yeah, also have many typical tastes also from Cantonese foods as well. So, but I need to apologize because of my presentation in Aveiro University at that time, I didn't focus more about the Macanese food. I just focus more on dim sum or yam cha for Cantonese food presentation. But today, after listening your presentation, I would further my research in CCCM next year to promote more about the Macanese food, and then just like the one part of the Greater Bay Area culture. So I thank you so much. Today I have many inspiration from your presentation.
Thank you.
So, and I would like also to have the further research or contact with you if you feel like.
Sure.
And then when I doing the research next year in CCCM, I think, to further advance the Macanese cuisine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll be there, so if you need any of my
Yes,
support.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Please. Please go ahead.
I thought your talk was very interesting. Thanks very much. I know this question may be a little bit of a off topic, but you mentioned earlier in your speech, frankly, that one slide where you saw the tourism street there, which was the mix of the Creole, and didn't quite understand what it was. The pressure on the
Which slide?
you were on it just before. This no, this one. Okay. So this was, I guess, not a great representation necessarily of Macanese cuisine or culture, or perhaps, but
No,
and then
the idea was to be a representative of what Macau is in terms of a tourism destination. I think.
see. Okay, and then, but then you also mentioned the involvement now of the 6 gaming concessionaires and how they have
Yes,
to.
here is Rua da Felicidade. I just took this picture last week. It was a win concession doing all this kickoff of the Rua da Felicidade without cars and with cultural activities in it.
Yeah.
So this kind of events that were always done by the government now have been replaced by the gambling industry. So this is the development strategy that the government is implementing for the on one hand for non-gambling activities coming out of the casinos business, and on the other hand, like you have if you make so much profit, you need to give back to the society for the bad things that you do. This is a moral thing, right? Related with when you have a gambling sector profiting so much, the gambling sector need to give back to the society, and I think it's with that mojo that they are doing this kind of development strategy based on diversity of economy.
Sure, and I don't want to debate that with you. I mean, I think you answered my question, which was more about, I read in the newspaper that you had actually attended the reopening of the Street of Bliss pedestrian area. I wanted your comment as to whether or not you thought that was a good representation of the concessionaire's involvement.
My
but
opinion.
I think you answered
yes,
it.
my opinion. Yes, I think it is. Yeah. Of course, we can always discuss. So, if the government is keep going, receiving more than 40% of profit from the taxes of gambling, and the gambling industries need to invest in this revitalization of the neighborhoods, of all this costs a lot of money. So the government will be much more rich than it is already. So what they are going to do with all the money that are not going to spend?
We have a few suggestions here. We would like to share that.
They are not supporting so much the associations nowadays. So
yes. That is also being partially outsourced, it seems. Please.
Thank you for the sharing. So here's the thing, like for the slide that you just showed, I know that's the recent events in Macau during September, right? I believe that's the
Which
event.
one?
For the event that you just talked about, the policy thing, like block the whole street, and then for the tourists. But here's the thing, like for the restaurant or like the stores in that street, most of them are more close to street food instead of like the typical Macanese food. Because as I know, like the traditional or like typical Macanese food restaurant, there are lots in Macau, and then they are really famous. And I believe if the tourists, if they want to visit them, then they would get there instead of like going to that street and then have the street food instead of like this way, right? And then, but here's the thing, like my question is like, do you think like we need some guideline or like record for the Macanese food, so that like I mean like as it's more like if people want to study or like want to know more about the Macanese food, they can have a way or like a guide to follow or like to study.
Well, as any oral tradition, as a language that, like the dialect, the Creole language, there is no much written sources. So much of this database is being constructed by, the people that are contributing for that. Like this database that you saw here, it's available from the gastronomy website in the government website. This is important to be done because it actually is a repository of documents, manuscripts, and so on that will be disappearing, or if families did not kindly offer them to the. But if you ask me if a study is done about the history, the sources, and so on and so on, I think some work was done in order to the title that was achieved at this time, but I don't believe that much more has been done further that. I do believe as a researcher and an anthropologist that there is no such a thing as an heritage that is frozen in time. So I do believe that anything like a language, like a culture, like identity, like a cultural manifestation evolves over time. So I do understand that people need to keep going attached to the past, because somehow it's the past that gives them the significance to keep existing in the present and to achieve something in the future. But of course, the Macanese food has been evolved and is not the same as some centuries ago, because it will not be possible to keep going cooking the same dishes as it was like centuries ago. In this sense, of course, it is important to keep going the old recipes and the old manuscripts and so on, but it's also important to make that effort to keep going, creating something, even though it's different from the past, but keep going with something that still is a reflection, is a mirror of this identity, of this Macanese identity and a way of life.
Macanese food is slow cooked food, right? So we will not see some sort of McDonaldization of Macanese food. I could launch a new. No,
only for Minchi.
I was thinking about coming up with this the food chain called Macnese. It would be like Macanese fast food.
Macanese is good.
Well, I think that the Macanese cuisine, in fact, lacks diversity. There's not many variety in the Macanese cuisine. For instance, you can see that there's a Macanese night food festival now on at the Artisan Grand Lap Hotel. They only offer 5 dishes, including the dessert, which I can read it from the website.
Please share it. We can go right after the session.
Yes. And the name was very strange. Galinha chau parida. Diabo, devil. Caril de nabo com camarão. Minchi com orelha de rato. Rat's ear. Yeah, and now the dessert is bhaji. So it's very difficult for foreigner to understand what's the gastronomy, what's the cuisine is. And the name they can invent, or they can create a better name, or a name which is more sophisticated, not from the lower class meal, Bhaji. So bhaji, I think is Indian, I think. I think
The
so.
influence is
Indo,
about G
Indo
from the
origin.
mechanism, but it
Indo
comes from
origin.
Yes, yes,
Galinha
yes.
orelha de rato, rat's ear. What is the name is very very strange. People is a little bit afraid of eating this
Yes,
kind
yes,
of food, you know.
We can understand, yeah.
That would be too.
So they can think of a better dishes, better mechanism gastronomy than this now promoting at the artisan. Grand Lac Hotel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did mention, but actually all this proliferation of restaurants with Portuguese dishes or Mexicanese dishes, whatever, in the social and cultural affairs, they told me that the law says that if you have a restaurant and if you have in your menu a dish from the Mexicanese recipes or the Portuguese one, is considered a local interest restaurant. So you'll be promoted by the official mediums. You'll be like considered something that is of interest for the place. So we'll give you some funding for that. And I think it's because of that it's proliferating so much this kind of restaurants, because that it brings more, of course, more tourists, and because you have disadvantages giving from the government as well.
Well, I do agree with you that some of the ingredients are not accessible in Macau anymore. And I can think of, very nostalgically, of balichon.
Yeah.
Balichon is kind of shrimp paste, which was prepared in-house, not on sale at any eateries or outdoors, anything. You have to prepare it indoors with the shrimps, the Chinese wine, and a lot of ingredients. But people already forget how to do it nowadays. So you can't prepare this Mexicanese food without the right traditional ingredients. May I say that?
About the minchi with the orelha de rato. Yeah, maybe.
É uma alga.
Yeah, there might be a way of promoting the mice industry in a way, right? Yes. Maybe. Yes.
Yeah, I remember the first time, almost, I don't know, 50 years ago, when I first saw the first recipe book, and I saw the same recipe. My God, what is this? What they are eating there in Macau?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the aspects that, doing what you just said, of the difficulty of having traditional Mexicanese dishes on the table, is that in fact, they are not visually attracting as any other dish that is made with a lot of decoration. It's not decorated, so it's home food is home food, right? So doesn't need to be decorated, although it can be delicious, and that is maybe one of the things that it's being not attractive, needs to be worked out in order to maybe be more appealing to the eye and not only to the
stomach.
To the stomach, yeah. Yes. So complementing what you just said in terms of the names, I mean the appearance also is important.
I kind of need to modernize somehow, or to make it more palatable.
People are telling me also that is very important in terms of nutrition balance, because now they cannot do it with so much sugar, so much eggs, so much, because of cholesterol, because of, this is really, of course, I mean, I think it's with all the cuisines need to adapt.
So you need to have chá meio gordo, right? Instead of chá gordo.
You know that you cannot eat it like a bom menino with the 30 eggs, yellow part of the egg there. It's 30 eggs in the cake. It's impossible to keep 30. It's impossible to keep going doing it like that, because people want to eat more healthy, and it's not. Of course, now these kind of concerns are always are present, and the presentation, as you, João, were saying. But of course, this is a part of people saying, okay, we need to improve the image of the dishes, and the more traditional part saying, no way, you cannot change the way it used to be cooked. But on the same time, I'm thinking, oh, but this was cooked for many generations in different ways, and it was okay because it was eaten at home. I think the difference is now that when you are trying to give that step, bringing out of the domestic universe, that I think is the problematic thing.
Yes, please.
Thank you
Over
for
there.
your presentation. And I would like to ask if we would like to make the Macanese cuisine as the identity of Macau. And do you have some suggestion to make this thing come to all the family of Macau, not only in the Portuguese family? Because when my friends come to Macau, I will recommend them to go to the restaurant to have Portuguese food. I didn't call them Macanese food. And so if we would like to make that identity, what would we do, or what the government need to do to make it go to the family of all the Macau people? Yes.
Well, I will answer with the question. For you, do you think that is Portuguese or it's Macanese? For you, I suppose you are from here, Macau, right? Why do you call it Portuguese and not Macanese? Why do you think that is this misunderstanding between one and the other?
Like Osek, right? Portuguese style, right?
But as I know, like they have Portuguese restaurant and Macanese restaurant in Macau.
The hard part is to distinguish for you?
Yeah. Like here's the thing, like because you keep mention about the Macanese food, but in Macau, even Portuguese or Macanese, they have different definition for that as well. So it's so hard for us to understand like what you mean by Macanese food.
Well, I think that is a reflection of the fact that the Macanese community was always a minority community in Macau, and it could be so well adapted to the Portuguese community as well as to the Chinese one, that actually this in between always this is what I discuss as identity ambivalence, that you can belong to each part or to each part, but never feel completely 100% of Portuguese, 100% of Chinese, or even that is very you cannot reduce to these two, because the mechanisms are much more than that. It's not only a mixture between Portuguese and Chinese, it's much more. It's all that influence that I saw, that I show it in the map. So yes, I mean, that's why the Macanese culture is really complex and hard to define, because it could be a little bit of everything, but at the same time it's something new that the Macanese did it with all that influence and all that way of living. But yeah, again, it seems to me that in Macau, everything that is non-Chinese or non-Cantonese, it comes with a label, which is Portuguese or Macanese. So it's like the Macanese and the Portuguese are associated with Western, not from here. But the Macanese can be much more from here, for sure, I assure you. That can be much more familiar than the Portuguese, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's not Chinese, it's not Portuguese. And because you never saw this kind of food being out at restaurants, and now they wanted to have it no matter what, because that gives the restaurant this title of, you know, like, this is a place to go, this is a place is interesting, this comes in the tourist guides and so on and so on, that everybody wants to have a dish. Sometimes it's just it looks like, it doesn't taste like. Other times it's just put a name there. You know, it's really hard to and I don't know if the solution is going to the restaurants and have like a supervision to, this is not minchi, so this cannot be in your restaurant. You cannot call it minchi.
Police, right?
I don't know. It's really hard. I think this is getting in its own mood, right? Like people are doing what they feel they like you. I think that is Portuguese. Okay, let's put it like Portuguese. You know, it's. But that is an interesting thing also about Macau. That is the way that things come together in a very confusing, mixed way, and definitely is a mixed thing in Macau for sure. You cannot talk about authenticity or about it.
Yeah, because like even it's not even for food, even for language as well. Like,
as well, right?
Yeah, like for Macanese, they have their own language called Badua instead of like Portuguese or Cantonese only. So I was like,
no, it's more than that as well.
like
there's like Malaysian influence and so on, Malacca and so on. Yes, it's like that. Yeah. Yeah, but that could only exist, I think, in here, in this context, in Macau. That could not exist in other parts of the world. So that mixture is a product, is a bioproduct of this way of living, this existence for more than 4 centuries, and keep going, right? And this is evolving. You know, I think this is something that keeps going. We don't know what is going to end, if it's going to end one day. But this definitely is something that is in motion, so, and will keep going, changing, transforming.
Thank you. Now, José Salles Marques.
Just a couple of comments.
Yes,
thank you very much, Marisa, for your presentation, and I really enjoy all the conversation that we have been having around, particularly Macanese food. I am Macanese. I grew up in Macanese, in Macau, Macanese families. And I think the very first thing maybe I should clarify is that within the Macanese family, as I grew up, we don't eat only Macanese food, okay? So we are in Macau, we are in the Cantonese environment, okay? And much of the kind of Cantonese food that we eat, they come from around this area. You know, kind of a Lingnam culture, okay? So many of the things that we start eating when we were just kids in some food stalls or something like that, you know, they are originally from this area. So this mix of cultures is translated into the food that we eat. And that food, there's no authenticity. I think we should forget about this word. We should just forget completely about this. You know, it's completely idiocy, you know, because authenticity comes from what is each family experience. Okay, of course there are common traces, and this is what makes this food a particular kind of a fusion gastronomy. However, if you want everything to have a stamp, forget it. I am against that completely, you know, because I think each family, each person has the right to create his own Macanese minchi, okay? And I have to say that many years ago, IFT invited me to write the foreword for the very first book they published on the Macanese cuisine. I wrote that foreword. I don't know if that book still exists or not. And I explained.
Which one?
I don't know. I forgot the name of it. It was so many years ago. And the fact is, you know, I explained that the way that my grandmother cooked something is different from the way my mother did, as well as I try to do. I don't know if sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. But the fact is, things change, and we have to be, you know, we have to be able to accept this dynamism in our society, okay? As well as the people that go to the United States or to Brazil, Portugal, they do the things that they have. Even the rice is different, right? You use the roche aguglia or something like that, and we use the local. Different. I mean, why should we try to bring up something to create a completely artificial? Huh? Yes, I mean, it's impossible to do that.
But it's because of creativity that things...
The authenticity of my Macanese cuisine, as well as everything else, comes from within, right? From within. You cannot impose that on the people. The problem is, of course, if you go to that website, and I've been there many times, the manuscripts, they're so different. Now, the question is, and this comes to the next level. As everything else, we have what I would call the experience and the reality of the Macanese cuisine. And then you can eventually create a kind of I would say, internationally accepted or commercially accepted Macanese cuisine. Yes, you can do that. You can do that. But you do it with research and with a lot of experimentation. You do it, and I think that IFT, for instance, should have a role on that. You experiment, you try to be authentic, to respect the culture and the background of the elements of that cuisine, even if you cannot reproduce that. Okay, there are many questions, open questions. Why tacho? This is the question I put myself many times, and I ask many experts of Macanese. Why is tacho made with pig skin, dry pig skin, or pork skin? Why is that? Is there any Portuguese dish with that kind of ingredient? I was told that in Alentejo there's something, but it's completely different from that. So why? That is a question for research. It's almost academic. It's an academic question, right? And it should be treated seriously. In the same token, I would say that this campaign about the gastronomy, I agree with you when you say that the gastronomy, this city of gastronomy comes especially because there is a special gastronomy in Macau. Otherwise, it would be completely the same as any other place around Guangdong province, okay? Completely the same. The only difference is the Macanese gastronomy. However, how much importance is given to that particular element? Do you see any particular, advertisement, publicity, promotion saying that? No. You know what is being promoted? Is those ngao chap. You know what is ngao chap, right? That is the most popular thing. If you go to any place in Macau, people queuing for that. Why? Because that comes in the publicity advertisement. No. Of course, that is a local or whatever Cantonese, maybe traditional thing. Street food.
É a bolacha e isso, não é?
And actually, I would say that is very, very unhealthy, maybe, I don't know. Very unhealthy. But that is what is being promoted. Where is the Macanese cuisine being promoted?
Yes, that's the point.
Yes. So, I mean, I feel a little bit like, okay, you make use of Macanese cuisine to get the title. But then, thank you very much. Now, what are you promoting? Yeah. Okay, so sorry about that.
No, thank you very much.
I think sometimes I listen to this talk about the Macanese cuisine and things like that, and I really get a little bit upset. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah. Completely right.
On the commercialization of Macanese cuisine, on the experiments, we volunteer to be laboratory rats for that.
Biased. I have been quiet for many times, and I love it.
but don't dare to put our ear in the michi.
No, it's completely true. I mean, not even the promotion, but I would say I hope I will not get even the people, you know, the tourism and the borough techniques that were working in this application. They didn't know nothing about the essence or the history of the Macanese cuisine. So yeah.
Thank you. We got yes, Michelle and João. Okay, 2 more questions. Okay, would that be okay? And then we wrap it up. Okay, please.
Thank you, Marisa, for your interesting lecture on this very interesting topic. Now, I just wanted to say that I think that it's important to stress how the preservation of the identity of a place depends on the will of the governments and on what they do to preserve that identity. I remember when I went to Goa, for instance, and we talked about Goa just now, like the Goa gastronomy being different from the Indian gastronomy. I don't think that the Indian government is doing much to promote the Goan gastronomy or the Goan culture or identity. So I think we are sort of privileged to have this happening here in Macau, and that I might be naive, but that might be a good sign for the preservation of Macau's identity, which I would much like to happen. Not as a Macanese, because I am not a Macanese, but I have been living here for many years.
But I think it was very important, the recognition of the
absolutely
of the intangible cultural heritage.
Exactly.
And even the recognition by China. I mean, it's
absolutely,
very
absolutely.
Even in the symbolic way, if
absolutely.
you just put it in symbolic terms, it's very important
absolutely
to have these recognitions officially recognized.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Actually, I was going to ask you about, I was ask you about recognition a couple of years ago by the Chinese authorities of Macanese cuisine as intangible heritage. That is meaningful, and were you a bit like positive? You know, it was came as a surprise. I mean, in a good way, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. So that can signal something, right?
I don't remember. Maybe you can help me if it was after or before this thing that a representative of the Macau government went to China saying that the Macanese were very important to be recognized as one of the ethnic minorities of China.
Should be more or less by the same year, I believe.
Probably so. I think this is getting in some clear direction for China. I think to me that's the point.
Thank you, Marisa. One last question.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the most important diplomat, ambassador of Macanese food in Macau. His name is Dimitrino Pina.
Oh.
I don't think people remember him. He's still alive. He's the owner of Pinocchio restaurant, which in the 80s was one of the most famous restaurants in Macau for Portuguese and Macanese food in Macau. It's still in operation now, but not so famous as before. Previously, in the 80s, people from Hong Kong or from other parts of Asia come to Macau, especially to prove the curry crab, which was created by him and purposely to be a Macanese cuisine, Macanese gastronomy, and everybody likes that. Dimitrino Pina. I think he's a very important figure in Macau. The Rua de Cunha is to commemorate a person who was in Macau and was governor of Macau for 6 days. 6 days only. Rua de Cunha. I think that the name should be changed to Rua Dimitrino Pina or Rua Pina, because this contribution, this important contribution to the gastronomy in Macau, and also to the introduction of tourism to Macau in the 80s.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment, for that contribution. Marisa, just wrapping up, any main takeaways from this talk in a nutshell? Any key idea that you'd like to convey?
Well, I think I have much food for thought to keep going about these topics.
Yes.
With all these contributions, of course, I have. And again, Macao keeps going fascinating me. It keeps going me in like a social lab that really things, because it's so small and, you know, this is, I think it's really easy to see things happening here, much more than a place that is so huge that you cannot have this complete idea what is going on. Here, things really happen, and you can observe these flows. And as an ethnographer, I do, most of my work is to observe and to talk to people, and I'm curious, so I will keep going, being curious about Macao. Macao keep going, giving me, puzzle me with the different aspects of life, and I think that is the most important thing for a researcher, to keep going, enthusiastic and curious about its research object. So thank you so much for all of you.
Thank you very, very much.
For having me here.
And thank you. So, feasting and power, in Portuguese, poder e comer, e agora vamos poder comer. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Obrigada.